All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host today, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today, guys, I'm excited to have a amazing soul here because not only does she go by the name Soul, she's also the essential mentor. Her name's Claudia Soul. She is, and was a psychotherapist, a consultant, a mentor for over 20 years, guys. And she really is what she calls now today the life and success strategist, behaviorist, and clarity expert. She helps people release the fog, release their confusion so that they can find the clear path to what it is that they want to do. And that's why I'm excited to bring her on board, because I think no matter how clear you are, there's always a little bit of fog that rises up. Just like every day, there's going to be a little fog in the morning, right? And we just need to clear that out sometimes in our life. So guys, please welcome Claudia to the show. Claudia, thank you for jumping on.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and tell you a little bit about what I do and my journey. So thank you.
I'm excited to have you in. So let's get started with that then, Claudia. So tell us a bit more about, for the people who haven't heard about you and your work, how do you help people? And I guess from there, how did you even get started in this?
Well, it's been quite a journey for me, really. And I think you mentioned already, I started as a psychotherapist, and that was nearly 20 years ago. I went off and did a degree in counselling and human change because I was interested in helping people. And I was always really a giver. I wanted to, through my own adversity and what I'd been through as a young person, I wanted to make sure that I could help and give back to others. So that's how this sort of journey started. And I've worked with thousands of people over that period of time in every conceivable sort of situation or issue or challenge, from addictions, relationships, trauma, children, young people, all sorts of things. People were just wanting to improve their life that, were unable to achieve goals and overcome obstacles in their life. So that's where it all began. And it's sort of, I think I was motivated and inspired to do that kind of work because I'd overcome quite a few issues as a child, growing up in a really difficult situation. And I think I wanted to show people it doesn't matter what your life is or where you've come from, you can achieve anything that you want when you set your mind to it.
Wow. And so talk us through this, Claudia. Talk us through, what was it was there a particular event that happened in your life where you realized, once I got through that, and then looking at it in like retrospect, that this was one of the biggest turning points in my life where I realized I could actually now be more clearer with what it is that I'm here on earth for.
Yeah, look, I think it's been a long journey. I don't think there's ever one moment. And, but when I say that, I think now that I understand what the journey is, I've got the capability of speeding it up for other people so they don't have to take such a long time to get to that amazing place of clarity in their lives. And I think for me, I was very much in my 20s, going back a fair while ago, that I didn't feel like I would ever amount to anything in my life, to be honest. I really felt like I was very different from everybody else, that I wasn't going to be successful, that somehow I'd been dealt a hand and I defined myself in that way. And a lot of people find that unbelievable when they see that coming out of my mouth. They go, I can't believe that, but that was the reality. And I was in rather an interesting group one day, what they called a psychodrama group, where you sort of acted out things that had happened to you as a young person. And that was probably my first milestone, where I realized I had given myself this identity of a victim, that I was a victim of my circumstances, where in actual fact, I was not a victim. I was a survivor, and I was incredibly powerful and resilient as a result of my experiences. I just needed to understand that. And that was my first moment of clarity.
Wow, and it sounds like it's a shift, right? It's a perspective shift to realize, it's almost like breeding like that self-awareness within yourself, to realize what you're doing to yourself first, and then, and I know this process, I'm probably shortening it down, right, quite significantly, but it takes a lot of time to first be aware of what you're doing, and then shift it and change it into one that's actually more empowering to you. And talk us through your method then, Claudia, of how you actually help people who are just like sometimes they just wake up and just feel so stuck in life, and that nothing's going the way that they want it to, and that everything they do is just like a mess.
Absolutely. Well, as a mentor, as the essential mentor, what I do is I will mentor even high achievers, and predominantly high achievers, but also anyone that wants to achieve greatness in their life, and that at times feels that they can't get that extraordinary life, that it's not within their reach. And the way that I do that is really to look into what it is that's holding them back. What is it inside them that they're not clear about? And what are they fighting with themselves about? Because what I realized in all those years of working with people is the only person or the only thing that ever holds you back is you. There's an internal struggle that goes on with you, and it's because all of these things that happen to us start to cloud things. They start to fog up the lens we see the world through. So I sort of, I guess as a mentor, get up there and I start wiping
Hmm.
the lens kind of clean for people
Hmm.
and put them in touch with what's really going on. And the thing that I'd add to that is one of the things I do, which goes against what a lot of coaches and mentors say.
Right.
I see a lot of coaches and mentors that go, we don't deal with the past. Therapists do that. Now, first of all, I'd say I don't work as a therapist, but I've got a different method. I combine some of those things
Mm.
with my mentoring method. It is essential we look at the past to understand how we behave in the present.
Yep. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
There's no other way around it, because if you're trying to implement things in the present, but you haven't cleaned up what went before, it just does not work. And that's why many people go to conferences and they get all motivated and whatnot. And then a few days later, suddenly it's gone again and the blocks are
Mm.
back. And
Mm.
that's because whatever's there blocking their clarity has not been dealt with. And to do that, we need to connect with the emotions. We need to connect with the emotions associated with whatever's happened to us. And Richard, I was talking about this morning on a live,
Mhm.
where even with, for instance, soldiers who've been through post-traumatic stress, the ones that manage to recover better are the
Yeah.
ones that are actually able to connect with their emotions that were related to their experiences. It enables them to release everything they're holding on to, and they get clarity around where they're going to go, what they need to do, and what's possible for them in their lives. It's very powerful.
Wow. And it reminds me like this video I saw earlier that I wasn't sure if you did today or the other day about the myth of happiness, right, Claudia? And it was really fresh, right? Because and you said this is it's like everyone wants this, or everyone believes it into this fallacy is where you have to be happy 100% of the time. Hey, how are you? How are you? I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Right? But we're not good all the time. And I think this is what I love most about what you're saying is that you connect these soldiers, you were saying that they connect with their emotions, but the emotions don't have to be positive. They don't have to be happy, right? And talk us through this, like how do we connect with the emotions where we don't want to experience these emotions? We don't want to experience pain. We don't want to experience anger or frustration, or sadness. And how do we actually connect with them and, let them flow through us so then we can go over to the other side?
Well, the reality, Richard, is there's no way that you can deny those emotions. If you're going through a period of grief in your life, or you've lost someone dear to you or something, you're going to not feel good, and you can't escape that. It's, if you try to deny those emotions, what happens is you become conflicted within yourself. And it causes you a lot of grief, and it also interrupts you being able to move forward in your life and do things. So when I delivered that live about the myth of happiness, it was really inspired by seeing so much stuff on the internet, amongst mentors and coaches going, just do it, get up there and be positive all the time, whatever. And it puts so much pressure on people to
Yeah.
perform. And we have to acknowledge that sometimes people, they can't see the end point yet. They need help
Mm.
getting there. And that's okay. That's okay, and we have to acknowledge that. So I think it's about acceptance. It's about acceptance that it's okay some days not to feel like you can't work on your business.
Mm,
Don't beat yourself up about that if you don't feel good.
mm,
I advised a client yesterday, right? She's in a business and
yeah.
she's really struggling to get motivated and to get things done.
Yep.
And I said to her, this is what I want you to do. I want you to get up in the morning and I want you to ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated do you feel? How passionate do you feel today about working in your business?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't score an 8, I don't want you to work on your business.
Mm,
And she said, oh, and she was really confused. And she asked me why. And I said, because if you can't score an 8, all that's going to happen is you're going to go through your day demotivated, not really putting everything that you can into it. And you're
mm,
going to beat yourself up about what you haven't got done. And
mm,
you're only going to reinforce to yourself that you can't do it.
mm-hmm.
And she's kind of engaged in that cycle. So I said, I want you at an 8 every day, but if you can't be there, I just want you to take the day off and not worry about it, because 3 days out of 7, if you work at an 8, that's better than 7 days out of 7 working at a 2.
Got you, got you. For a second, when you mentioned that, I was thinking, but Claudia, what if like 2, 3 days in a row I'm like below an 8, and then I feel like then does it add more pressure for me to actually do more, right? When on the other days, and how do you address that? And I'm not sure if your client brought that up.
But that's the pressure you put on yourself. But the thing
Mm,
is, if there's 3 days that you work at an 8 and you really kick some great goals,
mhm.
then it's about rewarding yourself and acknowledging. And people aren't very good at doing that, I find, in
Yes.
business. They're very good at focusing on the negative, and I didn't do that and I didn't do this. But the trick is to focus on also what you did accomplish at the end of the day, not what you didn't. What did you accomplish that takes you a step closer to where you want to be? So it's balancing that up as well. So that's what
Mhm.
I ask her to do. Start acknowledging the wins,
Mhm.
not just telling me what you haven't done.
And I think that's so important, Claudia, because when I used to do coaching, it's like we would get people to do things, right? And we'll get the client to do things, but then they don't acknowledge or reward themselves. And so, how do you get them to recognize and reward themselves for that?
It's generally that at the end of the day, they'll do a recap of what their day's been about. I ask them to carry anything that they didn't complete over onto their schedule, and that way it's wiped out of their mind. It's put back onto their schedule, and then I ask them to look at what were the wins from the day. What was it that made those wins? What is it that you were able to do? Because that's how we integrate our learning, and realize what our strengths are. And then what were the challenges, and how can you turn those challenges into opportunities?
Awesome, awesome. I like that because it's, and this is the thing I've realized as well with probably myself here speaking here, Claudia, is that sometimes even when we want to reward ourselves, we think it has to be a big reward. We think it has to be something magical, something huge in order for us to accept that. And I love to know, like, what are your thoughts on that, and how can we break it down if the person listening or watching this believes that oh, I don't know how to reward myself, Claudia, how do I start doing that?
Well, it really depends what, for you feels like a reward, and everybody's different in that sense. But I think this could, open up a whole new conversation in relation to business, because
Yes.
it, it's about what drives you in your life. And my big thing as a mentor is, it's great to have a business and be successful and make money, but are you really happy? Are the other areas of your life, do you feel content? Do you feel happy? And it's, I meet a lot of people, Richard, that have made a lot of money, but they're not happy. There's a lot of areas their children don't speak to them, or they haven't got a happy partner, partner or wife or husband in their life. There are areas of their life that aren't fulfilled. So they're very good at making money because they become programmed to do that. But then what happens is they take on a lot of fear about, how do I hang on to this money? And
Mm,
it often takes them over. So I'm a big advocate of understanding that our life, to be happy, this is how I would define it, and this is how I would define clarity. When you can be happy and content with nothing, absolutely nothing, but you and the relationship you've got with you, and not possessions or anything else, but you can feel happy in a moment, you have clarity. Because in those moments, you will understand that money, for instance, is just a tool. It's a tool. It fills your cup. It allows you to do other things. But there is far more than that. And I've also met a lot of people who've said their greatest clarity came when they had nothing.
Because they don't have to worry about all the other things, right? Then they just worry about themselves, and then that's gives them the opportunity to reflect within themselves. And I think that's what I love most about what you said is, really when you absolutely have nothing, but you can still love who you are, right? It's kind of like what I tell my old clients is like, you got to be your own best friend first, right? If you jumped out of your skin, Claudia, and you looked at yourself, if you look at that person and if you're listening and you look at yourself and you can't say you would be your own best friend, then there's a problem.
Correct. And when you don't have anything that you have yourself, that becomes the main thing that you have, and you suddenly start investing in you. You suddenly start to invest in yourself because you don't have anything else to invest in. And that's when the reflection starts, and that's when you have certainty, because clarity brings power and it brings certainty. And it doesn't matter how much money you've got. If you've got certainty about where you are in any given moment, you can feel quite content in your life and that you can achieve anything.
Wow. Powerful words, Claudia. I love it. And, Claudia, it pains me here that we have to start wrapping up the show, right? And as we wrap up the show, we go into what we call the quick fire question rounds, right? And I want to start off with my signature question here, my favorite question of all time. It's what we call the time travel moment, where if you could go back, Claudia, to any moment in your life and talk to little Claudia and give her a piece of advice that you know today, I'd love to know, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
If I could go back, I would say to little Claudia, and this is very relevant to me, I would say, believe in you, because anybody can achieve anything they want, and that your vulnerability and what you perceived as weaknesses were actually your strengths.
Oh, I just want to cut that out and then like play that over and over again, because it's like so relevant to what I think a lot of us and even myself need to hear day in, day out. And so beautiful. Thank you for that, Claudia. The next question I have for you, Claudia, is, you've studied a lot, you've researched a lot, I'm guessing, and I'd love to know, if there's one book that's an absolute must read in your eyes, Claudia, what book would that be?
Well, funnily enough, this is a business book, but it's Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. And because, despite being really a personal development mentor, I am in business as well, and I have another business as well. So I think for people that are sick of their ordinary life, if you're out there and you're going, I don't want to be 9 to 5 anymore, I want something different for my life, that book is a really good starting point for people about how you can take a passion or a gift that you've got or something that's in you that you want to share with the world. And you can read that book, and Daniel gives you a structure that you can work from with that book, and it's got really great tools in it. So I would say that book would be great for anyone that is sitting there saying, I want to change my life. I want my life to be different.
Oh, and I can attest to that because we had Daniel Priestley and Glenn Carlson on the show here before when we first launched it. And oh my God, just even Dan's words today still sinks into my head of literally how important it is to just really understand who you are and how much influence you can have as a person. Because I think most people don't understand how much they can actually influence other people through their own small actions. We all think that we have to be something huge, right? But even and this is what I tell most people, and I'm sure I'd love to get your point of view on this, Claudia, is if you walk down the street, someone, you might not know it, they might not tell you, but you're probably a role model to someone in your whole lifetime. Someone's going to look up to you and see you as a role model, whether you know it or not. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think I've learnt that. I do some teaching at university every 2 weeks. I go in and work with some students who are doing clinical counselling degrees, postgraduate degrees. And I really see that with them, because one of the things I teach them, because some of them may be our future mentors, is never ever fall into the trap of what I call the God complex. And the God complex is, and I guess in a way we talk about Daniel's book about being an expert, but the God complex is quite different. Never assume that we know everything. Never assume that there's not something else for us to learn. And never assume that we can't learn from the person that we're actually mentoring. It's an exchange. It's an exchange between two people. So today, you know, you interviewing me, there'll be things that I've picked up from you that I'll go, oh, wow, he did that way, because I'll go and reflect on that and I'll learn. And I'm sure you'll take away things where you go, wow, I never thought of it that way. So everything we do with another person is an exchange. And I think that's the best way to look at it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think it's almost like, it's kind of like, I forget who it is. I think it's Buddha from my recollection is like, you should do everything with like a beginner's mind, right? Even if you've done it a million times, you just come in like, oh, this is the first time I'm doing it. Maybe I'll learn something new. I think that's kind of like what you're saying here. And it just makes sense to me. And that's how you continue to learn and always be open to learning new and experiencing new ways of life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I created a quote, which is, come from knowing nothing and you will learn 10 times more.
Oh, Claudia's just full of these amazing little like tidbits and like quotes. I'm just like, oh my God, this stuff's awesome. Awesome. So Claudia, as we wrap up the show here, I mean, I'd love to ask you, we covered a bit today and, more than what I expected, which is great. And I'd love to understand more if there's anything you wanted to add in that we didn't get a chance to cover today on the show.
I would just say, you asked me about books. There's another man called David Hawkins who wrote a book called Power versus Force. And I would highly recommend that to people. There's a big difference in coming from a force-based position than coming from a power-based position. And I see that happen a lot in the social media world as well, where people come from a very force-based, aggressive, rather than a power-based position. That's one thing. And the other thing I would say is, and this would be my takeaway for people, is when you can get to a point in your life that you've got such clarity that you don't feel restrained about what you can do and what you can achieve, and you're able to give freely to other people and want to actually give something back in the world, things start to change. And this is something that over 20 years I've heard again and again and again from people. And I feel kind of privileged I did the work I did, because it was like research really, is when people started to give to others and be more open, they found that by the very nature of doing that, things started flowing back to them.
Wow. Awesome. I love it. I love it. And now, Claudia, as we close here, I'd love to know, like, if people want to get connected with you and learn more about your work, where's the best place they can head to?
They can have a look at my website, www.claudiasoul.com, or they could go, and I'd prefer if they just email me directly, which is claudia@claudiasoul.com. It's very easy to remember, claudia@claudiasoul.com.
Awesome. We'll add that into the show notes. And guys, a little tidbit here. Claudia is also working on an amazing book that's coming out really soon. So make sure you check out, you log that in. That's coming out later this year. And I highly recommend that you grab a copy once it's out. But Claudia,
They have to. It's life-changing. It's life-changing. And it's based on 20 years of working with people in terms of what can move you forward. And I wanted to also add, I'm getting involved, I'm not going to name it today, but I'm getting involved with a charity that is an amazing charity from someone that has succeeded really beautifully in their life after falling, and creating a charity that is all about giving people the tools for free that they need in order to recover their life and also start businesses if they want to do that. So hopefully I can come back on when that all starts happening and share some more about that with you.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing project, Claudia. And I think we should get connected again so that we can spread more of that news. And so, Claudia, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show. I just want to thank you for jumping in and sharing your amazing wisdom here today.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here today with Claudia Soul. And I know this. I know Claudia doesn't want to keep this a secret. I can't keep this a secret. This episode must go out there. So please go on and help us clear that fog, clear the pathway so people can actually find her episode and find all the other guests on here and their messages out there too. So get on over to iTunes, rate the show. And of course, you can get the show notes and all the resources Claudia has shared here today over at richardfood.com. And remember, guys, go out there, go live with love and go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one. Awesome.